What do you call a do-nothing, long-serving member of the Senate? You call him a piece of the furniture. What do you call a statesman in the Senate? That's easy. Bob Hall. And he's here for some straight talk, Texas. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and this is The Bunker Bob Show. Well, welcome back to another edition of the Bunker Bob Show, and as always, I'm grateful to have an individual like Senator Hall in the bunker, because it's rare today to have someone who actually stands on the conviction of their beliefs, but none does it better, in my opinion, and in the opinions of so many others than Senator Bob Hall. Senator, great to have you.
Oh, thank you very much. Awful kind.
Hold on just a second. Well, they're words that are not fluff. I mean every word of it. And I want to also say, I've just finished 10 candidate forums from governor to state house and I can't tell you how many times your name came up as a shining example of what we need and the kind of leaders that people want to emulate. So how long have you been in office now?
This is my second term.
Second term.
Yes.
So you've only been in office less than 8 years, and you've already made that big of an impression. I mean, that must make you feel good.
Well, I just simply did what I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
It wasn't a particular challenge to it, except doing what you say you're going to do with all the pressure that comes to doing something other than what you want to do. But I felt like, honestly, the idea of promises made, promises kept is something that was just natural to me. It comes out of, I can go all the way back to my freshman year at the Citadel. The thing I remember the most from all of things that happened was that very first day after being dropped off at the front gate by my parents, and the first class I had was that afternoon, and it was on the honor code. You don't cheat, you don't lie, you don't cheat, you don't steal, you don't tolerate those who do. And it was a system that was run by the cadets. This was not something that the faculty oversaw. This was the cadets that ran it and enforced it. And the violation of that was essentially immediate dismissal from the school. And so it put you in an environment where you were dealing with people when they said something, you could believe them. It stuck. And it just kind of stuck with me. And then my commitment when I was running, and that I did this because I felt God led me to do it. And without going into all the details of what he did that kept guiding me where I didn't want to go into doing this, I felt that the only way I could be in office and do it was to just do what I said I was going to do. And I ran as a constitutional conservative with Judeo-Christian values. And that's how I would view, and make people clear, you're going to vote for me, you're talking to someone who will look through the lens of a constitutional conservative with Judeo-Christian values to determine whether or not that's appropriate for government to be doing. Because government is not there to do just any old thing it wants to do. The government is there to serve the people and to protect individual rights, not to provide free stuff for them, as one of our parties likes to do, is think that's their role. Ours is to protect individual rights and protect us as a country and stay out of the way of the free market system.
It's easier said than done in these days.
Yes.
One of the things that I found most remarkable was it was after the constitutional carry bill passed, and I was so excited because I was one of those who brought that platform position up among. I don't know how many of our counties brought that one up. I think it was probably one of the more popular ones. But I was really excited about it. And I'm not on social media a lot. My producer Adrian, she's all over it. She's always she knows what she's doing. I don't. And so occasionally I'll slip into it. And
Mhm.
so when that constitutional carry thing came out, I thought, man, I'm gonna tweet something to Bob Hall. And so I got on your Twitter feed, and by that time, I think there probably 500 people have already tweeted, and most of them were just vile, mean. I mean, they were just going after you, it boggled my mind. Here you were, you projected when you got elected. Here's why I'm running, and
Mhm.
and yet you faced incredible opposition. Does that get to you?
Well, it is. I don't like it, but the answer is no. And I will go back to the experience I had at the Citadel as a freshman out there. I had all kinds of upperclassmen in my face all the time, no matter what I did, telling me what I was doing wrong and what was wrong, wrong with me, and this and that and the other. And their whole objective was to get me to lose it. And the whole thing.
What do you mean lose it?
I mean, get mad back and say something. And I just learned to, just to absorb it and let it bounce off. And that's kind of followed me. Not everybody's going to like everything you do.
Sure.
And it doesn't mean they're wrong.
Right.
They just have a different viewpoint. And I've really moved away from even talking about we have a disagreement on something. My term now is really we have a different viewpoint. People have been, and to say that because we have so many people that have been brought up and educated too far on the left that their minds don't see things the way a constitutional conservative sees it. They see it as a liberal socialist view. And so their view of the world is entirely, it's just like the difference between the worldly view and the biblical view.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like night and day difference.
Absolutely. Well, and what's happening in our schools today, the kids are being indoctrinated. They're not being taught. And I think that's part of the problem, obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, it's manifested itself in the two things that have come up between CRT,
yes,
and then what has now been discovered in the social emotional sex education, that we've moved from instructions in biology, which was nobody had a problem with that, to now promoting deviant lifestyles.
Yes.
And I don't mean just presenting it, I mean promoting it. And the number of books that are out there that are in our schools that are doing that will boggle your mind.
Wow.
Matter of fact, there's a documentary that's out, and it will probably be available to the general public in April, called Mind Polluters.
Mind polluters.
Mind
okay.
Polluters.
Okay.
And it's a very, very well done documentary that it exposes what is in the libraries in our public schools, in our public libraries in general. These are books that if I were to bring one and show it on this show, I could be arrested for pornography.
Oh my gosh.
The only reason they're able to do this in the schools is there's an education exemption. And that was put in there. The idea is that you do have to have some graphics for education. And so that exemption was made. What they've done is they've used that now to be able to put out things that are probably worse than ever was in any Playboy or Penthouse magazine.
That's an issue of the State Board of Education, because they're the ones who approve the textbooks for our schools.
Well, these aren't textbooks. These are just books in the library. These are books that they use, and we could spend a lot of time talking about the loopholes in education of what they're able to show kids without approval. We have the battle between the freedom of the educator in the classroom to teach as they see fit, which is a great idea.
Yes, it is.
As opposed to dictatorial control of them. But it's a situation where it's being taken advantage of. And that's how they end up teaching the BLM stuff, the CRT materials. No matter what they call it, they're just going to change the name. That name will go away, but the same concepts are going to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and they're masters. I mean, and you and I are both followers of Christ. We share a common faith, and so we we believe that Satan is a very crafty being, and that he knows what he's doing and how to tickle the ears of people to move them toward him. But that's kind of it's more than just a battle, in my opinion, of politics. This is a spiritual battle as much as anything.
Oh, very much so. We are in spiritual warfare
Yes.
for the survival of our nation.
No question about it.
We were founded as a Christian nation.
Mm-hmm.
Our founding fathers were all believers, maybe not in the same exact form we are today.
Right.
But they
respected it.
And it's reflected throughout the documents.
Yes.
Divine guidance. They depended on that. I mean, there was no question about that. And even the so-called atheist Benjamin Franklin was the one who said, "Hey guys," during the convention, said, "Hey, we're getting nowhere. We're just hassling each other, and any house built without God is built on a sand foundation. We need to pray." And what they do? They launched into a prayer session that lasted a very long time. And then they finally got around to producing a document that we have today.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, I just finished doing the candidate forums, and it is interesting because I think that it was two candidates in particular, Don Huffines and Congressman Pat Fallon, both talked about how every Republican who comes it runs for office, they will tell you they're the greatest thing since Barry Goldwater or Ronald Reagan or what have you. But there is a difference, and you probably see it more than anything. But I thought what would be great. There's one question I had for everyone, and all except the gubernatorial candidates. But I asked this of every candidate, and I wanted viewers to see how a true conservative would answer this question. Was that okay if I asked?
Sure.
It? All right. So
Sure.
I thought it'd be have a little fun. But the question was, if elected, or do you see yourself as a representative or trustee of the people? Now, a representative will act in ways that he or she believes those who elected them would want them to act, while a trustee acts in ways that they believe are in the best interest of the people, even if those who elected them oppose such actions, like shutting down businesses and places of worship during a pandemic. So, how would you answer that?
Well, to me, there's no question. We are a representative form of government.
Yeah.
But in that, there is a trustee role, in that you quite often know more about things that are about to happen or going to happen than the general public does. And so while on the surface, on the knowledge they have, they may question what you're doing, but as the person who has to make the decision, you have a responsibility to make the decision that is in the best interest of the people, when you know some things about it that they don't know. And so I would not use that as necessarily a justification for the lockdowns that took place, the closing of businesses, the shutting of our churches when we left our liquor stores open, or some of the other very, very poorly thought out decisions that were made. But in general, about legislation as it's being developed, because titles of legislation are often very deceiving. It's the details that are in the bill that really counts. And I get an awful lot of calls from people who hear the title of a bill and want to know why either I'm for it, against it, whichever they were saying, and something is that. And I said, well, and I'll explain what's in it that may be a poison pill that's quite put in there. I mean, our Democrat friends are masters at sneaking poison pills into bills along the way, which really negates the bill. But I will point out to them that recognize that it's not the title, it's the content. An example I'll use is the Affordable Care Act. How do you argue with affordable health care?
Exactly.
Well, what we got in that bill was anything but health care and anything but affordable.
Yes.
It was a disaster, but the title really sounded nice.
It did.
But
Build Back Better.
But yes, Build Back Broke is what it's going to be.
Exactly.
But in further trying to explain the role of arriving at the representative trustees on it, there are really two dimensions to being a legislature, whether it's the House or the Senate. It's probably the same two dimensions. There is the service side, and there is the governing side. The service side is while we're not elected by all the people, we're elected by the majority of the people. That's the democracy side. That the majority of the people elected us to then represent all of the people. So in service is provided to all the people, whether they're Democrats, Republicans, Independent, Green Party, Libertarian, Black, Brown,
Even Aggies,
male,
right? Even
yeah,
Aggies, right?
Well, that's
Come
pushing
on.
it.
Throw me a bone.
Yes, even Aggies.
All right, yes.
And, equally, they have an issue dealing with a government state agency in one way or another. That's part of our job. It's not just to go down there and legislate, but it's to help them live with the government that they have. And what we find quite often, Texas has a big government, but we're a big state. But we also have parts of that government that really tries to do something other than its job, doesn't necessarily do its job right, or sometimes thinks of themselves as more authoritative and powerful than what the law had intended for them to be, which results in a hardship on citizens. And so when they come to us with a problem in dealing with agencies like Parks and Wildlife, when we had the CWD outbreak a few years back, wanting to annihilate basically the deer breeding population of the state of Texas, the deer breeders needed some help dealing with the agency.
Wow.
Today, where we have hospitals that have lost their way and are more interested in the profits they're going to make by having COVID patients than actually healing the patients and getting them out of the hospital, the people need our help to intervene in getting them through there. But the point is, agencies can cause problems in the life of people across the board. And so it doesn't matter who you are. And to me, it doesn't matter whether you live in the district or not.
Yeah.
And I adopted that philosophy because I realized that my vote affects everybody in Texas equally. It doesn't just affect the people in Senate District 2, it affects everybody in Texas. And as such, if they come to me, we will help them with their problem. We won't tell them to go away, talk to their senator or the representative. And so that's the service side. Then the governing side is those of us who run as Republicans and those that run as Democrats. We are each of us part of a bigger organization. It's kind of also like a corporation. We have a statewide Republican Party. We have a CEO. Right now it's Matt Rinaldi.
Yeah.
He's the
Great guy.
state chairman.
Yep.
And then we have a board of directors, SREC. They are elected by the people, by the members, by the group, to run the party under the guidance of the chair. And in that, between them and the party members, there's a platform developed. And out of the platform, there are party priorities that reflect the general principles of the party. And Democrats have their set of principles and priorities. Republicans have theirs. And so those are the things that those of us who are elected as Republicans are expected to support and promote, and things that emanate from them in terms of limited government, fiscal responsibility, personal responsibility, protecting the Second Amendment, free enterprise, protecting religious freedom, etc. Those things. And basically the Democrats on the left are just the opposite. And so we legislate by supporting those priorities that the party says there are. Matter of fact, coming in election, we got 10 of them, I think, on the ballot of what they're saying. These should be our 10 biggest priorities for next session. I would hope that they end up at the top of the list. I am sure that either I will author or I will co-author every one of those bills when we go into session. Joint author, which I do quite often because it's much more expedient. I get, those senators that I work closely with that we think a lot alike, Paul Bettencourt, Lois Cole, of course, Brandon Creighton, and some others, depending on what the subject is. I don't mind. They take the lead, I take the lead, whatever it is, but we get the bill, work on getting the bill passed.
Yeah.
I mean, like constitutional carry, Charles Swartner was the author of the bill. I worked with him very closely, was a joint author on it. along with several other bills, the pro-life bills, joint author. But those emanated out of the platform, out of the priority items, and so that's what we do in governing. The service part is for everybody, but that's just the servicing. Help them live with the government that they can't get rid of. That's what it amounts to.
Yeah.
It's there. It's permanent. So keeping government in the box that it belongs in. And then the governing side is making sure that the principles and values that the party puts forward are moved forward.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things that I guess would be frustrating for me is it seems like you've got sometimes more opposition within our party than outside of our party. Are you seeing that?
Oh, absolutely. No,
Okay.
I mean it's. We'll say throughout in both the House and the Senate, more so in the House than the Senate, we have an awful lot of folks that are elected wearing the costume of the Republican Party, the big red R, because that's the majority party in their district, and that's the only way they can get elected is to pretend to be a Republican.
Yes.
But they are not a card-carrying Republican. They are Republican in name only in order to get elected, and it's reflected in their voting record, which is far less than conservative.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, most people today really don't pay attention to what their elected representative or senator does when they go to Austin, and it becomes a name recognition. Whoever can put up the most signs or remember, oh yeah, I voted for him before.
Yes.
But they didn't realize what they had done, and nothing was greater than the reflection of that this last session over in the Senate, where it's generally is not quite like the House, but where we had the vaccine mandate bill of trying to protect people from a mandate by employers. And I had the bill, and I was 5 Republicans short of being able to get that passed.
You got to be kidding.
No. 5 Republicans short. The business community came after it really strong, wanting it. And so their excuse was, we don't tell businesses what to do. That was their argument. It was near the end of the session. We didn't have a lot of time to work it, and things where we were just planning ran out of time. But their arguments were so fragile that you could tell that they were just having their chain pulled by the business community out there, because most of the time that's what we do is spend our time down there telling businesses what to do. We got bills that tell them when they can open, when they have to close, what they can sell, what they can't sell, how they have to treat their employees, what their signs look like. I mean, you name it, we tell them. We tell them what kind of toilets they can have in their bathroom, how high they can have the sink off the floor, what kind of ramp they have to get into it. Some of them have to publish things in multiple languages. I mean, we're telling them coming and going, and this is simply. And I think one of the things we were looking at is stopping the mandates, when actually what we were doing was trying to protect individual liberty.
Yes.
We realized that at the end when I adopted the phrase "my body, my choice."
Wow, that's an interesting use of words.
Yes, used by a group for a totally different meaning, but very applicable. Totally,
sure is
inappropriate where it was being used before because it was not their body that they were talking about. But in this case, it is my body, so my choice. There and actually doing it, if you read it and understand it, the Nuremberg document that came out after Nuremberg on what can be done in terms of experimental medical experiments, the document was put out from Nuremberg. It's a violation of that. I mean, we tried and found guilty and hung doctors for doing something that was no worse than what they're doing with the vaccines here in this country, yet we're letting them get away with doing it.
Wow.
They are experimental.
That's shocking. Now, one of the problems, and I think I've talked about this on a lot of the candidate forums with candidates, is especially with lieutenant governor and governor races. My frustration is it's hard because I want to focus on keeping those of you who are in office accountable. and being able to highlight your record. Well, it's really hard to do when things don't actually get to the floor for a vote. So, for instance, the bill that you were talking about, did it ever get to the floor for a vote?
No.
See, and that's that. And so you have candidates who are incumbents. And I brought this is this year's this session's. I think Justin Holland probably has the most, and he's always a conservative. But I mean, if you look at his, I mean, I'm just going to use him as an example. But if you look at his voting record, he's getting these endorsements from NRA because he's voting for the things that come to the floor, but the things that never got to the floor. There are members of the House, there are members of the Senate who do everything they can to undermine and keep things from getting to the floor. And it's that back room, that back behind closed doors view that so many of us are not able to see. Is there anything we can do to change that?
Well, it's a little bit different in the House and the Senate under that. See,
Okay.
Let me talk about the Senate
Yeah.
first. In the Senate, we have the blocker bill rule. That is, we have a bill that's passed right when the session begins, and then it takes a 3/5 vote to get past that bill, which means it takes 18 senators to agree that we can bring the bill to the floor to vote on it.
Okay.
It only takes 16 to pass it,
Okay.
but it's the same rule that they have in Washington in the Senate.
Okay.
When they keep talking about going the nuclear option, so you get rid of that majority. It's got its good side to it because you see in Washington it has kept the Democrats from being able to pass something because with 50-50 and see the Washington the vice president oversees the Senate
Correct.
and gets to vote.
Yes, in a tiebreaker. In the case of a tie.
Okay,
Yeah.
but with 50-50,
She votes.
it's already we're out of balance.
Yeah.
And so it's only that super majority to bring it to the floor that keeps that from happening.
Okay.
So it has a good place in there.
Okay.
And it also helps to slow things down because I think Will Rogers said, no man's life, liberty, or property is safe when the legislature's in session. And so,
Boy, isn't that true?
so we don't, and passing, 12, 13, 1,500 bills every 2 years is a real burden on the people of Texas.
Boy.
And so having that is not such a bad thing.
Okay.
Until you come to a bill you really need or you want, and then it's the devil itself.
Yeah.
And that's the way it was with the vaccine mandate. We couldn't get to that point to get it to the floor for a vote.
And your vote, just for clarification, you keep saying vaccine mandate. It wasn't a vaccine mandate bill. It was a bill to prevent
mandates, just to stop mandates.
Yeah.
It was prevent mandates.
Yeah, I want to make sure that's clear. Yeah.
But it's kind of a policy thing of that 18 votes, and because you never see a bill fail. And the way
Right.
the Senate has been run is the lieutenant governor will say, if you don't have the 18 votes, I'm not going to bring it to the floor
Yes.
for a vote.
Right.
I would be very much in favor of that going away.
Okay.
We got constitutional carry passed because it did go away. The lieutenant governor said, we're taking this bill to the floor. It's coming to the floor. He stood up. I was very proud of him
Wow.
for doing that.
Okay.
Because there were senators there that did not want to vote for that bill. Not that they're, and again, this is, how are we representing our people?
Yeah.
Not that their constituents didn't want it, but they personally didn't want it.
Yeah.
And so by it not coming to the floor, they could always go home and say, well, I would have voted for it, but it didn't get to the floor.
Right.
But now it came to the floor and they knew they didn't dare vote against it. And because
They'd be on record.
They'd be on
Be
record.
people like me watching them.
That's right. Be on
Yes.
record for it.
Yes.
And so he said, we're going, this is going to the floor.
Wow.
And it got passed that way.
Yeah.
I think there would be other good bills like that. And I will not be surprised if in this next session that we don't see some more of that.
Okay.
I got the feeling that, because I see this upcoming session as an opportunity to do some really good stuff that we haven't in the past been able to do. if we can get the House aligned.
Hmm.
The House is a little bit different. Their process, and they're different in that they allow Democrats to chair major committees. Over
Yes. Yes.
there. And that's a whole subject in itself.
Yes, it is.
That could be talked about
Yes.
sometime. but in doing that, but then they have a thing that instead of the blocker bill, they have what's called the Calendars Committee. And this is a committee that once a bill passes its basic committee, whether it's border security or finance or whatever it is, it goes to the calendars where the folks on the calendar committee decide what's then going to go to the floor to be voted on. And so it can get in the calendars committee and languish there and just never got out of calendars, you know. And it, that's for, somebody that the influencer says, that bill, HB, umpty ump, whatever it is, I don't want that bill out. Okay, it won't come out. And so it gets hung up in calendars committee. Or the other side of it is get that out of there. We need it to the floor, want it for, it'll come out very quickly.
Wow.
And then they take bills in order as they're coming out of the calendars committee, and then there are quite a few amendments that will go on the bill. You very seldom see an amendment in the Senate. They're generally worked out in committee ahead of time. There'll be some that will come to the floor. I got the election bill last time. I got 6 amendments onto one bill, and that was kind of because of the speed of which things were going. And but generally, very few amendments will go on the floor, and none that really change it. And so you'll also hardly ever see a bill go down on the floor.
It surprises me, and I think it surprised most Republicans, especially those of us who are delegates who worked on the platform and worked and voted for legislative priorities, that we didn't get gender modification, which it's almost absurd to even think that we would need a bill like that. But the fact that we've got a Republican led House and Senate, and the governor, lieutenant governor, and we didn't get that passed. What's the real story behind that? What happened?
That was a very frustration to me, because mine was one of the bills. It was SB 1311.
It was, okay.
And it was the one that was going to prohibit the insurance companies from providing insurance to a doctor that did it, and it was going to prohibit the doctors from performing, removing healthy body parts from anyone under 18.
Wow.
And we didn't get the drug modification. We couldn't get that into it, but that would be the other part of it. And it and 3 others all died in the House. And my speculation is that the commitment, see, in the House, the Speaker of the House is for recent years has been elected by the Democrats, with some Republicans going along with them.
Yes.
And their approach has been to get the commitment of the Democrats, and then that means they only need a handful of Republicans to get passed. But to do that, they've got to promise certain things. And there were promises made, as I'm told, to the LGBTQ caucus that we have in the House, that these bills would not see the light of day. And they didn't.
Well, and that's why we've got a bill, or no, excuse me, we've got something on the ballot, the Republican ballot, those of us who are voting Republican, to vote and kind of amplify the fact that we don't want to see the Speaker of the House being elected by Democrats. They need to be elected by Republicans, not that little backroom deal that so many of these guys are doing. So hopefully, but again, I mean, we have people on the campaign trail that are in office, that are running for election or re-election, who are basically saying, I'm a Republican, but it's just said. What do you call it? They're wearing.
They have the Republican costume with the big red R on it.
That's
that they rented for purposes of going to Austin.
Yes.
And that's about it.
Yeah.
No, there's got to be a culture change. The only path I see to that happening is an overwhelming change in the House in the number of Republicans. If we can be successful as I think we're going to be, I mean, as I see the Democrat Party destroying itself, I mean,
Yeah.
we could almost stop campaigning and just let them keep doing what they're doing, because we've got Democrats coming over the droves. They may not become Republicans, but I can't vote for that nonsense. I can't vote for that craziness. And we've seen that reflected down in the valley. I mean, we could talk all day about the significant increase in Republican votes in the valley, where we actually have some of those counties there where Trump got more votes in this thing, and then Biden did. And McAllen elects a Republican mayor.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that trend is happening. So there would be but to get to the point I'm trying to make is, it's going to take a super majority of Republicans so that somebody can run for the Speaker of the House, counting on Republican votes and not have to make promises to the Democrats in order to get elected.
Well, and it's not just that we elect Republicans, but Republicans who are actually going to stand by our party platform.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, and then that's the other side of it, is that it's hard to serve the leadership at the top
Yep.
and in the House and support the Republican platform at the same time, because you don't get support from the top and from the House for those items in there. You don't see them making them priority items.
What a
over there.
shame! What a shame! The other issue is our border.
Yes.
One of the things that I learned having you on the show, you were giving a legislative update. We talked a little bit about the border. You highlighted the fact that it's the federal government's job, and yet there are portions of the Constitution that basically allow us to protect ourselves if we're from invasion, if we're being invaded. Do you think we're being invaded? Do you think that we have, as a state, do you think we should exercise that constitutional right?
I think we should have already done that before now. We should have already done that. We should have stood up and said, this is an invasion. Come and stop us. We are stopping it. We're going to load them up on buses and we're going to take them back. And just like Gonzales, come and stop us.
I like that.
And just do it. I think we have done our country a disservice.
Yeah.
By just paying lip service to it, just lining up, a few thousand National Guard members and adding DPS officers with their cars parked bumper to bumper, looks good in a photo op, but it's not doing anything meaningful down there. We haven't done it. And putting up a chain link fence, it just is not doing anything, and we aren't. In following the Constitution, I think that the Constitution is clear that we do have the authority to do that. But it's also clear that we could enter into an interstate compact with another state.
Yeah.
Now, I've had a bill just about every session down there to do just that. And there used to be a program called the 87G program, which the federal government did away with that. And that was a program where our police officers could go to I believe a 2-week training program, and they could become educated in federal law, and then they would be authorized to act as federal agents in dealing.
Wow.
And so I had to build it to do that, to pay the police departments for the cost to send them to these schools, and then we could implement that. But it ended up going away, so it's not as powerful as it was. But we do still have the interstate compact. And all we have to do is enter into an agreement with one other state. It doesn't have to be a border state. It's any state, just that we agree in the interstate compact on border security, get it approved by the Congress, and then we can enforce federal law as though we were federal agents. And so we could do that. And my thing is, we ought to be doing that now, because I think we're going to take back the Congress. It does not approve, according to what the constitutional attorneys tell me, it does not require presidential approval. It's just congressional approval.
I see.
And so we do that, and of course we're going to have to pay for it. And people say, well, that's supposed to be federal money. Well, folks, federal money just came out of your left pocket. The state money comes out of your right pocket. It's all your money.
Exactly.
And you're already spending well over $12 billion a year on all the illegal aliens that are in here. So spending a few $100 million is going to save us a whole lot of money.
It is remarkable, all of the candidates, it seems. I can't think of one running for either state house or a lieutenant governor who didn't speak about the same thing. And so it kind of begs the question that why we have a Republican governor and lieutenant governor. Why has it not happened yet?
I just think, of course, this is not something our lieutenant governor could do. I think he'd be very supportive of it. He was supportive of my compact.
Okay.
We got it. We did vote it out. We got it out of the Senate. He was supportive of it. He is supportive, as best I can tell, of the actions out there. It's the leadership at the top that's standing in the way.
Wow.
That is not taking any meaningful action. Everything is for show.
Well, okay, so I think we're kind of on the same page. I've been a big fan of Abbott for a long time. I'll just say that. Yeah, I do think that it's time for a change. And you've had a chance to meet and see a lot of those who are running. What do you think about those who are out there wanting that job?
Oh, I think we got it's the first time I've seen such a broad field of capable people.
Yeah.
Good-hearted, solid Christian conservatives that have the best interest of the state at heart, as opposed to looking for a title.
Yeah.
So I think we're blessed right now with a number of challengers out there in many positions that could make a real difference. And this has got to be the year to do it. We are pretty much, of course, they say that about every election. This is the most important election ever.
Yes.
But the things you've mentioned here today, you can't go back and find as many of those. There's always a kind of a big issue.
Yeah.
But the breadbasket full of critical issues that we have that right now, the issues of energy. I mean, I could spend hours talking about the problems with our electrical grid and why we're in the position we're in.
Well, no, wait a minute. Is that not been? It was my impression that it's kind of been fixed. That we're in good standing.
Good. We're in good shape as long as the weather doesn't get cold. If we don't have cold weather, we're in good shape.
It's different from what you hear in the press.
Oh, absolutely, because we didn't do anything meaningful physically with the system. Now, we did make some administrative changes that are, and I say administrative, but they were important to make.
Okay.
And we did have to make them because what we had before was we had the fox guarding the hen house. In the PUC and ERCOT, the boards in there were replete with power company executives. And so their modus of operating was power company first, citizens second.
Okay.
And it was because they were appointed. They were appointed to those positions, but they knew that their first responsibility was back to their company they came from. And so their whole setup was set around protecting the power company.
So real quick, do you think that we're poised if we is this a simple solution? Is it a very complex solution? What are we looking at?
Okay, it depends on what you want to try to fix. The people problem is that was a significant improvement because the philosophy. Let me finish answering that, and I'll come.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Is that prior to the switch with people and what Peter Lake has done with the philosophy, we operated on a crisis management basis.
Okay.
The crisis management was how long can we wait to bring a power plant online to meet the demand? I mean, you know that you don't produce electricity and store it. the
Right.
electricity is produced based on demand, and
Right.
you have to watch who's turned on their lights, who turned on their air conditioner, who turned on whatever. And as you see the demand go up, you have to bring the power up with it. And as they, wait a minute, they're turning it off. You got to shut the power plants down because you have to keep them balanced. You can only produce what's being demanded, and so it was running very. And so the way we set up with crisis management, our standby power was we waited way too long to bring it on board. We've changed that to now have what we call capacity management. And that is we have the capacity for what we think the demand is going to be in the ancillary supply ready to go. And so we've cut down that gap that almost got us into trouble by management. What we didn't fix is pure capacity and the reliability of the capacity. And we are too much dependent on unreliable sources. Wind and solar are considered to be unreliable sources because we can't control when they operate.
Yeah.
Their operation is in God's hand.
Yeah.
Does the sun shine or does the wind blow?
Yes.
So it's unreliable. Thermal is what we call reliable energy. But we have some very old plants that are not necessarily reliable from that standpoint. They're not resilient. And we have lost capacity because of the policy that brought us wind and power also required us to shut down dozens of coal-fired power plants all over the state and also prevents us from operating our gas-powered plants at maximum capacity because of environmental reasons. And so it's the policies behind those that brought us down to what we have, plus the money that was spent on the unreliable wind and solar, about $19 billion up through last year, could have been used to make our grid system physically more reliable, more resilient.
Wow.
And we could have even gone beyond just the hot and cold. Because see, the winter phenomenon, that was something new. Texas never had a winter problem. Our problem is in August. That's when the big problem has been. We got it turned around. But the other side of it is the threat from a terrorist attack on our electrical grid system has been totally ignored. From whether it's physical, cyber, a geomagnetic, or an EMP from a nuclear weapon.
Okay.
That would take down our grid permanently. And when I say permanent, that's a long time.
That is.
Wow. And the federal government study from the White House Commission on EMP said that without electricity for 11 months, we'd lose 90% of our population.
Wow.
And that's been pretty well documented.
Wow.
But we've done nothing, and we know that our enemies and nation states have the capability to execute an EMP attack. We've watched Iran practice launching a missile off the back of a cargo ship, which they could do off the coast of Galveston. One weapon, one shot, just one shot. This is just one thing. One weapon detonated about 250 nautical miles above the central part of the United States, roughly Nebraska or Kansas, and the lights go out.
Wow.
Lights go out in the United States. But Texas could do something about it. We have our own electrical grid system. There are 3 grids in America: Eastern, Western, and Texas.
Did not know that.
It's solely contained. 85% of the power in Texas. There's some parts in the Panhandle on the east and a little bit on the west side that come in from the eastern and western grids, but 85% is under ERCOT. And we could protect that system ourselves, no matter what the federal government does.
Wow.
To make it resilient to a thermal, a geomagnetic, that's like a sunspot. They're real, and we have absolutely no control over those. They come off of the sun, the nuclear explosions that come off of the sun. And when they come off the sun, they're doing it all the time. Those that happen to intersect with our orbit affect us. And we know they're real. We know that the first one we ever had that we know about, recorded, was 1859, called a Carrington event. And it knocked out our telegraph system from coast to coast, sent operators to the hospital, set railroad ties on fire, and curled up railroad track to look like pretzels because of the current that ran through them and the heat that built up.
Oh my goodness.
And a few years back, the big blackout in the Northeast came from a GMD that took down 20 million people up there for quite a bit of time.
Wow.
So we know it's real. And we have small ones all the time, but one of the size of a Carrington would wipe us out.
Wow.
And so we know. I mean, Iran has threatened to do it. Matter of fact, a few years back, we intercepted a cargo ship carrying sugar, but it also had 2 SA-2 missiles buried in there with all the launch equipment, which could easily just be set up on the back of a cargo ship with a small nuclear weapon on it. And in about 30 seconds, our lights would go out.
Wow. Wow. Well, it is good to know that there's hope. And is it a legislative issue? I mean, is this something that the legislature needs to take
Since the power companies refuse to recognize it, yes, the legislature, and I've had a bill again. I've had a bill each session. That just gets stymied. It gets no support from the front office. Matter of fact, they're really been told to don't let that see the light of day because we don't want to do it. The power companies are very influential. They have a very strong influence. Now, Lieutenant Governor has been supportive of it. I've gotten it out of the Senate each time. Sometimes a little bit late in the session, but he's come through and supporting it. It's getting to the House and to the governor's office is where the holdup has been.
Well, as you look at March 1st is coming up, it's nice that the old saying is there's only 2 ways to run. That's either unopposed or scared, and you have no opponent in the primary. I think you've got something in the general, but I'm glad to see that you can actually kind of take a breather this time. Obviously, we don't take anything for granted, but at least you're through the primary. When you look at March 1st and you look at all of the candidates and stuff, do you see some real potential that we could make a real difference this time around?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I do. I think, as I mentioned, I think the blue wave is kind of fizzled, and what has gone on with the insane stuff that's come out of Washington, and what gets publicity out there, that the people in this is not Texas Democrats. I mean, these Democrats in Texas are the old school Democrats. They hang on it because I'm a Democrat. My daddy was a Democrat, and I'm going to be a Democrat. Well, wait a minute. This bus has changed. This is not is not your daddy's Democrat Party.
No, it's not.
It's not your mama's Democrat Party. This is something that is totally out of touch with reality.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of those trolls on my Facebook page with their comments, and I kind of delight in it because they generally get attacked pretty heavy for their comments and expose themselves for who they really are. But I think that's what will continue to do in the Democrat Party, of those folks that just think that the government's there for this. This drift away from God, this grow government where government owns all the property and provides everybody with an income and provides them with all the food they need to eat and all the medical services. And I think that's going to do itself in. So I say when we got some really good challengers out there in several House seats that I think could make a difference. Will pull us back to the right with a majority that could make a difference. That's both the House and the Senate have some really good challengers.
Well, obviously, we see, and as I showed you, this is the stack of mail that we get, and it's all just political rhetoric. It's just quick talking points and stuff like that. What should any advice as we close down today? Any thoughts about what voters should be thinking about when they go to the polls?
They really need to be thinking about what is the philosophy, the principles and values of the person I'm voting for. It's not a beauty contest. It's does this person have they demonstrated? If it's someone who's running for re-election, look at their voting record. Look at those organizations out there that scrutinize in selected areas, such as Texans for Fiscal Responsibility
Yes.
score on how they're spending your money.
Yes.
And that's all they're interested in. They are interested in fiscally responsible people. And so they score the
Yes,
folks
they do.
on how responsible are they. Texas Right to Life looks at how did they vote on the protection of life, both at the beginning and the end.
Mhm.
You have Texas Values, which they look at how you protect religious freedom
Yes.
in there. You've got originally called turf. How did you vote on transportation issues, particularly on the expansion of toll roads throughout the state? That's how they score. You got Gun Owners of America. How did you really vote on gun issues? And they some of these get down beyond just the vote, but did you joint author? Did you support and promote, or do you just yes, or no, or whatever?
Yes.
And Young Conservatives, they put out a scoring, and then the big granddaddy is Rice University, Mark Jones, where they evaluate all the votes you take on the floor.
Wow.
Senate is evaluated, and the House is evaluated separately
Wow.
on floor votes, all the votes, and then rank from most conservative to most liberal.
Wow.
House and Senate
Wow.
in there.
Wow.
And so that will give you a good idea of if they're an incumbent. If they're a challenger, you just have to look what have they been doing? Have they been living the life of a conservative? And do they, when they talk, you have to go more on their talk, because they don't have a real track record.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing about it is we've got term limits.
yes.
It's called voting. Every 2 years for a House member, every 4 years for a Senate member, and that's our built-in term limits. The only reason somebody's in there more than one time is because the people voted them back in again.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully we can term limit some of those guys out this time. But I really appreciate your time today. I know you've got a busy schedule, so being able to come to the bunker at this time is great. You have an open invitation anytime, and I just want to say if you haven't thought about the candidates, if you're not sure who to vote for, remember, I've done the candidate forums, but also all of the organizations that Senator Hall has talked about. I'll put links to those organizations in the description of today's show, and I hope that you will be an informed voter. But most importantly, be a voter. Get out and vote, and make sure that you get your friends and family out to vote as well. Don't forget, a Republican does not a conservative make. And it was Thomas Jefferson who said that when the people fear government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. So we are a people, of the people, by the people, and for the people. Let's keep it that way by voting for conservatives who will protect our liberty, like Senator Bob Hall. So thanks for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you next time. Blessings to you all.